Today, I'm also announcing $100 million in new U.S. funding for humanitarian assistance in both Gaza and the West Bank. This money will support more than 1 million displaced and conflict-affected Palestinians, including emergency needs in Gaza.
US President Joe Biden announced $100 million for aid to Palestine. This money, he said, will support over 1 million displaced and conflict-affected, and added that USA will ensure mechanisms in place so that the aid reaches to those in need and not to Hamas. So basically a political posturing that they stand with support and solidarity with Israel, but they also care for the people of Gaza and the West Bank, and that is of Palestine. Both Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris have been tweeting non-stop on social media that both Israelis and Palestinians must have equal measures of security and prosperity. Biden even speaking to the Egyptian president for stability and peace in that region. But amid this, what was confusing here was that hours before this announcement of aid, USA vetoed a United Nations draft resolution at the Security Council on humanitarian pauses in this ongoing war. This, of course, led to many questions, criticism, and raised eyebrows too. What was the resolution? Brazil's ambassador, Sergio Franca, had said that his country, as president of the Security Council for October, responded to a call by the council members to forge a united response to the crisis. He said, "Council paralysis in the face of a humanitarian catastrophe is not in the interest of the international community." He regretted that the collective action had stalled, stating, "Very sadly, the Council was yet again unable to adopt a resolution on the crisis, and again silence and inaction prevailed." With the questions raised, to clarify, US Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield claimed that a country's veto in the Council chamber was because this resolution did not mention Israel's right to self-defense. And she said that Hamas is responsible for the humanitarian crisis, which was not detailed in the resolution. The veto, meanwhile, came in as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also set 3 conditions, saying, 1, that no aid will be allowed into Gaza via Israel's border till hostages are released. We are talking about more than 100 civilians, including babies, who are still in Hamas terrorist captivity. Netanyahu's condition 2, that Red Cross must do medical visits to these captives. And point 3, he said, Egypt-Gaza border can be opened to send all that humanitarian aid if they want, but his border of the country will not be opened. So United Nations could have now become that alternative to ensure the aid was sent, but will not likely be happening with regard to the resolution that was expected of. Remember, the United Nations has been criticized in the past few weeks for not even giving out a joint statement after 7th October massacre of civilians in Israel by the Hamas terror group. The Security Council is United Nations' most powerful body, but many actions have not even taken place due to the veto power that is held by each of its 5 permanent members: United Kingdom, United States of America, France, Russian Federation, and China. Remember, the UN could not give that joint statement on October 7th because the members differed with each other, some of them with their alliance with Palestine and others with Israel. Now about the numbers with regard to the Brazil resolution. 12 of the Council's 15 members voted in favor of the Brazilian-led text. 1, United States of America voted against, and 2, Russia and the United Kingdom abstained to vote. Interestingly, Russia supports Palestine and still abstained on the humanitarian pause on the war. Prior to the vote, 2 amendments proposed by Russia calling for an immediate, durable and full ceasefire and to stop the attacks against civilians was rejected by the Security Council. Russia itself is in a war with Ukraine and wants a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Looks like an awkward hypocrisy also, isn't it? But because of this no vote now by USA, Russia and China jumped in at America over this. Russia said, for months the USA was in criticism of Russia attacking Ukraine, but does not have much to say on Israel at the United Nations. And their UN ambassador Vasily Nebenzia said, we have just been witnessing once again of hypocrisy and the double standard of our American colleagues. This back and forth has been going on at the United Nations. Now, amid all of this, specifically visits to Israel by the US President, by the UK Prime Minister, constant political statements by the heads of state releasing almost daily with regard to their support to Israel. Where is Russia and China really? To me, they seem conspicuous with silence. If the West is reacting so strongly, why is China and Russia so quiet? Russia and China are two out of the 5 permanent members in the United Nations. Russia and China both support Palestine. So they're not neutral for sure, but their leaders are strangely quiet than others. After Hamas attacked Israel on 7th October, USA condemned the attack immediately as an act of terrorism. Chinese President Xi Jinping remained silent. Eventually, China's foreign ministry giving out a statement stating all parties must remain calm. While Biden was in Israel and expressing support completely to Israel, Putin was meeting Xi Jinping in China on 18th October. And Vladimir Putin called for close foreign policy coordination. And this was the official big discussion on the Belt and Road Initiative, which is in complete contrast to the India-Middle East IMEC corridor, which is via Israel and with the United States of America's support. China needs support to build broader coalition to reinforce competition with the USA on global stage. It also intends to revive its own economy, which has suffered due to overinvestment in the real estate. Listen in now to what Xi Jinping said.
不搞意识形态对立，不搞地缘政治博弈，也不搞集团政治对抗，反对单边制裁，反对经济胁迫，也反对脱钩断链。
Now, points to note here. Moscow is in a conflict with the West over Ukraine. Beijing also is not on the best terms with USA and is regularly intimidating Taiwan. So both countries trying to get more support of other countries. Because if Russia faces any Western sanctions, China remains a key customer for Russian oil and gas, thereby a gateway to survival. China needs Russia with regard to Taiwan if the Western nations raise objections. Ironically, while China claims to support Palestinian Muslims, it faces grave accusations of massive ill-treatment of Uyghur Muslims. The majority Muslim nations in the Middle East have been largely silent about China's treatment of the Uyghurs, so China wants to play safe and not over-involve itself, at least in that region, unlike the United States of America. While we talk of United States of America's involvement in the Israel-Palestine conflict, and many are criticizing for the over-involvement too, the fact is its own enemies will want that too. American resources diverted into Ukraine and Israel, putting boots on the ground with direct support, would give Russia the reason possibly to continue Ukraine war and could also give China the chance to attack Taiwan. Plus anyway, the United States of America's boots in Afghanistan and Iraq have not set the best examples in the world history. Russia and China have a common strategic goal to be together against Europe and UK, to become strong world voices that are not in the Western world, and they can stand together. This video is to remind you, the viewer, that beyond Israel and Palestine are other countries also playing their own share of game, looking at a broader lens of what works for them. And this is just of the Western world, for example. Then the Arab world has its own calculations going on, while people on the ground in Israel and in Gaza continue to suffer.